Hello. Welcome back to the Sales on Demand show. I'm your host, Adam Schneider, and today is episode 101. I thought today it would be kind of fun to talk about something that is wild, crazy, and really big. So I've called today's episode, How to Scale Your Business to the Moon, a Proven Strategy for Massive Growth. And this is definitely not a, beginner's lesson, but I think that beginners really should listen to this episode because if you are beginning and you have high hopes, you've got big plans for your business, you need to understand the steps that you need to take, the things that you need to do in order to build that huge business. So we're going to talk about it from basically beginning to end. This is basically a 1 to 2 year program or strategy, something that'll take you a couple years to effectively enact, but really you could start doing this immediately. All right, so what's going on with me right now? I've just been training, building, and growing. I think my mental health has drastically improved over the last month. The weather is finally looking pretty nice outside, and I've just decided that whatever is happening right now, that I'm just going to be okay with it. I read a book. I shouldn't say I read a book, but I listened to an audiobook called Unbroken. And it was a story of a man named Louis Zamperini, who was he was a bomber. He was on a bomber during World War II. I forget what his job was. I think he was the bombardier, the guy who actually drops the bombs. And his bomber crashed into the Pacific Ocean, and he spent 47 days in a raft before being captured by the Japanese and basically, tortured. That's the only way I can describe it. He was tortured physically and psychologically for another 2 or 3 years before the war ended. And he survived all of that, came back home, and, he found God, became a Christian, and it was just an amazing story. If you haven't heard of Louis Zamperini, you should listen to it. It'll make you feel like nothing in your life that has ever gone wrong really matters that much. And that's kind of the perspective that I needed. I needed to understand that even though I've been facing challenges and I've been just kind of angry about the way that the world is going, that, really things they're not that bad and they're getting better. Especially, not just in my life, but things are getting better in the whole world. I know that we all like to look at the world and say that there's a collapse coming. Yeah, there's challenges coming. But, human beings are pretty resilient as long as we, when we face difficulties, we rise to the challenge. It's what we're built to do. Not everybody rises to the challenge, and not everybody's going to survive the challenges that come. But those who are ready and are willing to work hard, those people are going to rise above. And that's just the way that human beings have always been. So that's been helping me kind of move past this feeling of anger about the lockdowns and all of this stuff. I'm not happy with what's going on. I've just decided that I'm going to change the things that I have the power to change. And that is my own attitude and the way that I live my life. I'm going to grow. And, everyone else can stay in their house and hide away from the world. But I'm going to go out and make something of myself. So that's what I've been doing. Already started kind of making plans for the summer. Looks like I'm going to be going on a couple of military training courses. So, this is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing. It's what I've been sort of looking for. This will probably be it for the military training and get it out of the way and get it done. But it's going to be fun. There's lots of shooting and things exploding and sleeping outside and not getting very much sleep, that kind of stuff. So it's going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to the summer. And I think this summer, even if it's not quite the same as other summers, I think it's going to be really good. And I am implementing all of the elements of the strategy that I'm going to be talking about today. So this is currently me living out my own strategy. Cool. Well, what is selling right now? Well, okay, here's another reminder in case you didn't already know. Mother's Day is May the 9th, and it's almost the end of March, which means that April is the go-go month for basically getting all of your print-on-demand listings out onto your store. People are not going to buy anything that isn't listed. So get those Mother's Day items, get those customized items out there, get FBA stock into Amazon if you have a supplier that can do that. There's lots of ways to get FBA stock into Amazon. It's not too late if you do have a supplier that's got 1 or 2 weeks turnaround time. You've got time to do that. I think this is going to be a good one. There's people have money in their pocket, and that means that they're going to be buying because that's what happens when people have people they care about. They buy gifts for them. So of course we've talked about what people will buy for Mother's Day. It's not just mom themed items. It's anything that is basically female oriented. And of course, a lot of people do their shopping for Father's Day at the same time as they do their Mother's Day shopping, particularly on Etsy. You're going to see lots of women shopping. They're going to be buying one for mom and one for dad. And whether it's their mom or dad, it doesn't really matter. Most of the shopping is going to be done by women. That's just a reality of Etsy. It's a reality of most online e-commerce stores, is that they just seem to be dominated by women. So just keep that in mind when you're creating your listings. Right? So, of course, you can get a free video and weekly tips when you join my email list. And I always give out information that I don't include in the weekly podcast. So I just had a 100th show bonus that is now over, but I still offer this training, and I'm still offering 2 hours of personal one-on-one coaching when you sign up for Print on Demand A to Z. So you're gonna want to go to salesondemandshow.com/AZ to sign up for that. So just recapping what I was talking about in the last week was investing. And there was 4 different things to invest in. One of them was like food. And I did talk about crypto a little bit, although I didn't want to get too deep into crypto because that's a huge topic that, you could talk about for hours. But I am taking my own advice. I'm currently waiting for half a cow to be ready for me to pick up. My uncle is, he's a cattle rancher. I have lots of talented people in my family, and he's one of the people that is the most talented because he can produce meat out of grass, which is great. And so he's got grass-fed beef waiting for me. I've got an entire half a cow, something in the neighborhood of like 400 pounds of meat. It's going to be pricey, so it's a lot of money to spend up front, but it's going to go in my freezer. And, even if I don't, if food is still plentiful, like there's still food in the grocery stores, but this is good quality, healthy, ethically raised beef, and it's cheaper than you would pay in the grocery store, and it'll last pretty much a year in the freezer. I'm still eating beef that has been in there for a year and a half, and it hasn't gone bad. There's not freezer burned. If you wrap it properly, it lasts a long time. So I'm buying food and I'm putting it away. And I've also been doing some crypto trading in kind of an advanced way. I put a decent amount of cash into a what's called a hopper, and I'm relying on a bot to do some trading for me. So we'll see how that works out. I know the crypto market is pretty volatile. goes up and down and up and down. So I'm just kind of letting the bot do the trading for me and trying to make a little bit of profit off of that, because I've got a decent amount of cash that I would like to start, having work for me. Cash that I need for the business at the moment. All right, so let's talk about this scaling your business to the moon strategy here. So a lot of people are using print on demand as a side hustle, which is fantastic. Most people will do this. Most people will and should be doing print on demand as a side hustle. There is nothing wrong with this. It is an easy side hustle, and it's cheap to start. It requires not that much time investment. If you really put in an hour a day of actually like creating listings, and even if you include talking to customers in that 1 hour a day, if you averaged an hour a day, 5 days a week, you would build a very profitable business, especially on Amazon, where you don't need a lot of time to deal with your Amazon sales. Etsy does take more time, so you may end up on holidays like Mother's Day and Christmas, you may end up spending, an hour and a half to 2 hours just sending out orders when it's really, really busy. But it's still easy to do that, and you're making like lots of side money. Most people doing this aren't earning a full-time income, and that's fine too. I mean, extra money is extra money. Multiple income streams provides security for your family, and it also gives you cash that you can put away as, emergency fund. You can save it for your kids. I mean, everybody should have multiple income streams and just live off of, a small portion of what they're earning. So again, there's nothing wrong with doing this as a side hustle. It's how I started. And, only recently have I decided to really start scaling this up in a, real hard way. But building an empire, is something different. So I did a podcast with Travis Ross a couple weeks ago, and you can go listen to that. I think it was episode, it was in the 90s. Anyway, I can look it up and throw it in the show notes. But he is building an empire. This is his entire job, and he wants to scale it up to a large business. And anything over, I would say a large business is anything over $200,000 to $300,000 to $400,000 a year in sales. Once you reach, between $200,000 to $400,000 a year, you've kind of reached the limit of what one person can do by themselves. And most people, they can't even do $200,000 a year by themselves. I would say that if you're doing $100,000 in sales in a year, that you're starting to get into the scale your business up really big area of your career. I guess you could call it that. I don't know if you can call this a career. It's more of an enterprise. But you need to start thinking about building this big. You can't just rely on an hour of work a day and hope that you strike it rich. You have to apply significant amounts of leverage, and it's a very different skill. It's a very different strategy than just learning how to sell products on Amazon and Etsy, because now you've got to go out, find people to do work for you, and it begins to become that you're managing their time rather than you're doing the work. So not only do you not need to know what you're doing in a general sense, but you need to be able to teach other people that, and you need to be able to bring them in and make them an effective part of a team, manage their time, and get some good work out of them. So I know this sounds difficult to do. It's actually nowhere near as difficult as it sounds. I've been doing this for the last 7 weeks, and I'm seeing a enormous benefit from it. So I have built a step-by-step strategy for how to do this, and I'm going to be putting this into my training program. I'm currently working on almost a full revamp of the training, because I I've been having conversations with smart people, and although the training that I've got is good, it's not perfect. And I am nothing if not a perfectionist. I know, yes, I know, it's never going to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfection. I'm aware of that. But there is something called getting closer to perfection. And that's what I'm aiming for. I want this training to be not just good, but astonishing and amazing. I want people, when they take this training, to be like, wow, this is the best e-commerce training course I've ever taken. So I'm basically I'm going to be moving things around and redoing some videos to really maximize the value of the training videos, and I'm going to be adding bonuses that bring out the best possible success that you can get. So, and one of those things is teaching you how to scale up by building a team. I don't see a lot of e-commerce training teaching this. I mean, there are some people who talk about it a little bit, but they really don't get into the details of it. And I think the details matter, because it is scary to start hiring people, because most people have no idea, like they can't even manage their own time. So you think to yourself, well, if I can't manage my own time, how am I going to manage someone else's time? If you only have an hour a day to work on this, then, I mean, how are you going to hire somebody and have them work for 4 hours? You're not going to have enough work for them to do. So the strategy of building a team is important, and you need to know how the team works together, because this is very, very important. You cannot be doing half of the work. You have to make sure, well, we'll get into it. So we'll start with step one. Step one is begin to build a team, right? Obviously, this is step one, is that scaling up, you're applying leverage. You're going to use other people's time to build your business. So you're going to have to get some virtual assistants working with you, either virtually or people physically who are your neighbors or your friends, your family. You got to recruit them, pull them into your team. Quite honestly, it's a little bit easier to hire a virtual assistant than it is to just hire someone locally. And believe me, I've tried. I've tried to get my kids involved. I've tried to get my wife involved, and she is involved in some measures. But these, those people already have things going on in their life. They didn't plan on you recruiting them, right? So unless you get into print on demand and you have a partner who is, really dedicated to print on demand, you're going to probably find it hard to recruit family members to do this kind of work. And then managing the, basically you want someone who you can basically, and I don't mean this in a bad way, you want someone who you can basically boss around a little bit. You're going to be telling this person what to do. And sometimes family members, they don't really deal well with being told what to do. Now, managing a person's time is far more than just ordering them around. I have a virtual assistant who is working for me, and I check in with him every single day with a quick email, and it's usually just a really lighthearted, hey, I've dropped a couple more designs in the folder, got some customized designs, can you put them on mockups and launch them on Amazon? That way, my virtual assistant knows what my expectations are, and they will fulfill those expectations because that's what I'm paying them for. Now, start with one person. Beginning to build a team means that you've got to start with one person. You can't just walk out there and hire a team of 3 people. It just doesn't work like that. So you start with one person, and this person is going to rely on you. So this actually might be one of the most difficult parts of building your empire, is hiring that first person. So you've got to look for someone who that you can train to do half of what you're doing, and then give it to them and step back from it. So you don't want to be stepping on their toes by doing their job for them, and you want to find someone who can work independently. And the easiest way to do that is to find someone who can upload the products that you create to one of your print-on-demand suppliers. I like to use GearBubble, but you could also have them upload to Printful. There's lots of other print-on-demand suppliers that you can use, but getting them to do that is an important part of taking some of the work out of your hands. Now, this will do two things, of course, and I've talked about this before, but I'll reiterate. So it's going to pull the best out of you. Now you have someone who is relying on you for work to do, which means that you're going to step up your game a little bit. It's very easy to be lazy, and if you're just working for yourself, if you're a solopreneur, it's very easy to just be like, you know what, I'm too tired to do any designs today, so I'm not going to. And I did this for years, and I still found great success, right? But it wasn't enough for me to just do some work when I felt like it. I needed that extra person who was sitting there relying on me to do the work. So now at the end of my day, one of my tasks is making more designs for my virtual assistant to upload. That's an important part of my day, and I've started building it into my time. And the results have been astonishing. I have made 700 new designs, or products, I guess you could say, because I put the same design on several products. So I'll put a design on a white coffee mug, on a two-tone coffee mug, on a travel mug. So I guess I count that as an extra product. But over the last 7 weeks, I've built 700 of those new listings just with my virtual assistant. So you need to train them and start stepping back and letting them do their work. And training is a process. You never start off being 100% efficient. You might have someone who's 60% as good at what you're doing. They're going to do 60% of the work in the same amount of time as you could. So your goal is to get them to 70, 75, 80%. And that's pretty much the best you're going to get, because nobody will ever be as good at doing this as you are, because it's your business. Employees, generally speaking, are never as good or as motivated as the boss. It's just a fact of life. But 80% is pretty good. And, seeing as how it's pretty cheap to hire someone from overseas, and they are very highly motivated people. Like, people in the Philippines are some of the hardest workers that I've ever seen. Same with people in like Malaysia, or I think you can hire people from Mexico. These people are motivated. They're motivated because they want to feed their families. And because it doesn't cost very much to live in the country that they're in, a little bit of money goes a long way for them. And that's great, because it benefits both you and them when you hire them to do this work. So that's basically step one, is that you build your team, start with one person, train them, start stepping back. Now, step two is enlarging the team and have them work for each other. Now, your role at this point becomes managing the time rather than doing the work. Now, you might still be doing some work. You might be doing research work, so you might be saying, okay, here's some keywords that I want you to research. But the amount of your involvement in the process starts to become less and less and less. And now you're just becoming a manager. So you're looking at the work that they're doing, and you're looking at the 10,000-foot view. So rather than saying, okay, use this font for this product, now you're finding a graphic designer. You either hire somebody who is already trained with graphic design, or you find someone and train them to do it. And now I think it's much easier to do the first thing, and this is where you're starting to actually put more money into this than you were before. It's actually cheap to hire someone to do basic computer work, uploading, and maybe a little bit of research, but finding someone who has graphic design skills is going to become a little bit more expensive, because now you need someone who relies on Photoshop. Maybe this person has some experience in doing graphic design, and I mean, graphic design is a talent. It really is. It's not a talent that I have in great spades. So you're gonna have to have someone who knows what they're doing. Now, there are some workarounds for this. You can actually sign up for companies that offer unlimited graphic design service for a low monthly cost. And by low, I mean, I think I saw one advertised on Facebook, and it was $450 US a month. So basically what you're doing with that is that, this company has a team of graphic designers, and they're paying their graphic designers basically a full-time wage. You give them as many, tasks or jobs as you want them to do, and they produce it, and hopefully, they're making some profit off of that, and which I'm pretty sure they are. But it gives you some flexibility, and it gives you a predictable cost. And in fact, this is probably what I'm going to be doing when I leave for my military training, is I'm going to have this company producing as many of my designs as I can. And I'll just feed them the ideas and get their work and then send it to my virtual assistant. So I'm hoping to not have to do a lot of managing of this team. They're going to work for each other. So one person's work feeds into the other one. So you'll have someone doing research, then they give the research to the graphic designer. The graphic designer, in turn, creates the designs, turns it over to the uploader uploads it. Now, the uploader and the research person can be the same person, basically, because, it's pretty easy to train someone to do research. It's actually much easier to train them to do research than it is to train them to actually create designs. If you want nice designs, that is. If you just want like basic text designs, it's pretty easy to get them to do that as well. But, we're talking about designs that are maybe a little bit more, fancy looking than the basic text designs, which is kind of where I'm starting to lean these days. I just want a little bit more quality in my stuff, and I'm, mainly because I focus on customization and Amazon FBA. All right, so to recap that one, you're going to make your team bigger, have them work for each other. Now your role becomes managing their time rather than doing the work. Step 3, this is where the ongoing refinement of your plan goes, because even once you build this team of people, you still haven't maximized their productivity. You're not really making any money off of them. So you've got to develop a growth plan that looks at all the data and says, okay, so I'm seeing a lot more sales from this topic. Let's make more products with this topic. Or you have somebody that quits, and you're going to have to deal with that over time. So you're gonna come across some fairly big challenges. And the challenges are, people are going to quit. You're going to have cash flow challenges and setbacks. And this is where the growth pains come in. You're also going to want to expand to other marketplaces. You're going to want to set up, really solid supply chains. So you may end up, building your own production facility, which is something that I've been doing myself. Like Amazon FBA for me is important, and I've decided to build my own supply chain. But that's a lot of work, and that's not something that you can give away to an overseas company. Really, if you want to do fulfilled by Amazon in any real like big measure, you've got to basically do that in-house. Or, you can hand it over to a trusted supplier, which is fine. And then you can have someone who basically sends the replenishment orders to that trusted supplier and basically just manages the stock levels. So there's lots of interesting challenges with this. And you might start even getting into building actual branding, putting actual branded packaging and stuff like that. But I don't see those as being super duper important. Building the staff is going to be the huge factor that moves the needle. More listings, more products, somebody handling customer service, for example. Once you've got, thousands and thousands of sales, it becomes very difficult for one person to handle all of the customer service, especially when it's really busy. So you're going to have someone whose job it is to respond to customers. And you may end up adding this person to your Etsy store as an actual shop member and giving them access. And then you got to decide, what's the best way to do that? Do I trust this person with access to the store? So really, this is a huge strategy that is basically quite a bit the same as someone building a normal brick and mortar business. You're going to have the same challenges. You're dealing with actual people now. This has become less of a at-home business where you just sit in front of your computer and more of a real company where you're facing the same challenges that large companies do. But you're also seeing the same kind of profit margins and the same kind of overall value that you're building in your business. You're building $1 million business here, maybe multi-million-dollar business, and you can sell it, you can transfer it, you can, hire people to run it for you and basically step back, take the profits, and go and do something else, if that's what you want to do. The guy who's really inspired me on this, his name is Bank. And what I was inspired by is seeing, because I follow him on Instagram and I follow him on Facebook, and he took an entire 6 months. He was basically managing his business like this. So he would get in there and manage it when he needed to, but he had a bunch of people doing most of the work for him. And because he had been building this team over time, and they were very productive, he was able to step back and just travel for 6 months. Just travel the world. He went to Thailand, he lives in Thailand, but he went and was hiking in the Himalayas, just doing some fun and awesome things. And all the while, his business is still running, and he's still making lots and lots of money, and probably spending some of it as he's traveling. But that's the whole point of having the money, right? Is so that you can do these things. So that really inspires me, and I kind of hope to duplicate some of that. Not that I want to travel the world for 6 months or anything, but I would just be able to, I'd like to be able to just divert my time to do some other interesting things and have a business generating lots of income that I don't have to spend a lot of time daily managing. I can spend more time podcasting. I can start doing some writing. I would love to do some writing. I'd love to do some video creation. I'd love to start, really building the YouTube channel, working on coaching people, working on building content. And this is the strategy that I'm going to be pursuing. So, of course, I will always let you guys know how things go with me. And I will never, ever lie to you about the challenges of doing these kinds of things. But it is so much fun. I love this. This is the greatest thing that I've ever done in my entire life. I mean, after having been an employee for the first half of basically all of my adult life, I finally feel like I have room to really stretch my legs and sprint rather than just trudging along in the same rut that everyone else is trudging through. Even if it's a well-worn rut with very little risk, it's still a rut. And I don't want to follow, the rest of the world. I want to do my own thing and build my own legacy, I guess. So I guess in conclusion, I'm going to say that this strategy isn't for everybody. You can run a print-on-demand business as a solopreneur. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Solopreneur for your entire life. But, there are people out there who just are like, I want to go big. And I know there's challenges to that, and I know it's going to be difficult. It might take some years to do it, but this is how it's done. And if you want to go big, I'm going to have the strategies for you guys to do that. If you want to stay small, I can teach you how to do that as well. There's a lot of flexibility in this business, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution. So hopefully you guys found some value in that, and it's wonderful to have all of you guys as listeners. The show is growing. I have been seeing a steady upswing in downloads for the last basically 6 months straight. So that is exciting. Don't forget, it's on iTunes as well. You can visit the site salesondemandshow.com. Leave a review. Leave me a comment. Just, communicate with me, because at this point in time, everybody who comments gets a comment back from me. So, and I love comments. So go ahead and drop a comment or leave a review if you found any value in this. We'll see you next week for episode 102. We're going to talk about building an email list on Etsy, which is a very cool topic. So we'll see you guys next week. Cheers.